Hi, I'm Brian with Badger Peak. Today we're going to show you how to light a fire the right way, the best way. We're also going to demonstrate some of the advantages of a fire steel, or some call it a flint and steel, for lighting fires as opposed to lighter, matches, something like that. To start with, the first thing when you're building a fire, the most important thing is preparation. As you can see, I've got lots of wood here and it's already divided up into different piles, different sizes, ready to go. A lot of people will get a little small fire going and they'll run off in the wood just to collect more firewood. By the time they come back, it's all out. So preparation would have prevented that. So we've got it all prepared. Next thing, every fire needs a base. Now oftentimes this can just be the ground, but as you can see, the ground here is a little bit snowy and wet. A base is something that keeps your fire off the ground. This is really important in deep snow. You build your fire, even if if you had a small base, it just sink into the snow. So they're more important, of course, when you have a real wet ground. So something hard, as big as possible, to give you room to work. Next thing you need is a brace. A brace is anything that ideally use it to block the wind as well, but the main thing is you're using it to lean your sticks against and keep them up off your tinder, and that'll become more important here in a minute. So speaking of tinder and lighting the fire, if I were to, I've got this pot here to demonstrate, if I were to take a lighter and try to light this fire right now, I can do this for half an hour, nothing's going to happen. I'm not going to be able to get any fire. If you throw a lighter in your pocket for about 45 minutes, it'll usually dry off enough you can make it work. But if I'm really cold, or if someone just fell through ice somewhere, we got to get the fire going now, lighter's not going to cut it. So next thing is a flint and steel, or fire steel. This one's the Strike Force, made by Ultimate Survival Technologies. Nice thing about it is, soaking wet, you can still get sparks out of it, make a fire. So, and that could be soaking for days, it wouldn't matter. If you were to use waterproof matches, the matches themselves are waterproof. Oftentimes the container therein has that rough surface to strike on the lid. That surface usually isn't waterproof. So you pull your waterproof matches out, they're nice and dry, or even if they're wet, that's okay, they're waterproof. You go to strike them, they won't light. So be aware of that. So there's a lot of things we could use as tinder to start this fire. Could use fluff from a cattail, really dry grass, something like that. What I prefer, also because it can't really, it's not a problem if it gets wet, is pitchwood. So to show you pitchwood here. Pitchwood is that dark wood. So that's a piece of pine here. The pitchwood's that dark strip there. This other piece, the whole piece, is pitchwood. Pitchwood forms when a tree dies suddenly, like it's struck by lightning, something like that. The force of the tree pulling sap upwards quits immediately when the tree dies. All that force comes compacting down to the bottom, probably foot and a half of the stump. So the bottom of the stump will get what's called pitchwood, and that's the wood just completely saturated with sap. And the reason it's waterproof is because it's so saturated. It can be in that water forever. There's no room for water to soak into the wood. So that's why I prefer pitchwood. So I'll pull out a Chris Reeve knife here, must for every fire. And we're going to create our tinder by scraping. Now, I'm not going to shave off any of this pitchwood. I'm going to scrape it off. So the knife is going to be perpendicular and push downwards. And you'll see I'm getting these nice fuzzy big pieces, big chunks here. And once you get a bunch of it, you can sort of cut it off out of the way. And let's get a little more. Keep that piece out of there, that'd be cheating. Obviously, if this is an emergency, there's nothing wrong with cheating, so you do that. But I want to show you how to do it right without doing that. So, okay, so that's our tinder. We've got our base, brace, and tinder. The wind's shifted a little, so we'll block the wind. If I didn't have this brace and I started laying my kindling right on this, it'd crush it down. And tinder, all kinds of tinder, works better with a little bit of fluff to it. So we don't want to crush. That's what that brace is going to do for us. So before you put any kindling on the fire, you're going to get your tinder started. And from there, things will go a little quicker. And we'll just start with the smaller kindling and work our way up. There we go. And we're just going to start placing this on here. You want to give it a little bit of room between each one so the fire can get some oxygen, get good airflow through there. And then as you build your next layer, try to angle a little. If I stack these all just directly on top of each other, they'd fill up that whole area and we'd have no room for the oxygen to get through. So just keep going sort of crosswise back and forth. You can hear it crackling. That tells us it's starting to get going. And we moved up to bigger stuff here. And a larger kindling, about the size of your finger or thumb. Just remember to constantly vary which direction it's going so that we have a lot of airflow through there. It's important to keep adding the wood upwards. A lot of people will say, okay, I got a fire going, I'm going to stop. Fire needs somewhere to grow to. It has to, and of course fire goes upwards, so it will build up. So the fire has somewhere to go. Fires don't like to just sit, they want to grow somewhere. Okay, so we'll give that just a second. Next thing, we're going to be adding these bigger pieces. At this point, once you got your fire going fairly well, you can decide what shape you want your fire. You know, you've probably heard of a teepee fire and a log cabin fire. You can light any fire starting this way, and then from there decide the shape of your fire. A log cabin fire is the best for probably a group of people just trying to stay around it, be warm. It keeps the heat low, and everyone around it can be warm. A teepee fire focuses the heat upwards, and is better if if you have a small teepee fire, you can use it to cook over, say with a pot. So just start every fire this way, and then you can decide what shape you want your fire to be from there. Okay, next we move on to fuel. So that was kindling. Anything about this size or bigger is going to be considered fuel. Once you have fuel on the fire, that's when the fire is sustainable. Once I get all this on here, I could walk away from this fire for 20 minutes looking for more firewood, and it'd still be going when I get back. So this is what really gets your fire sustainable for a long period of time. So you can see we're building this into a teepee type of fire. We'll focus the heat more upward than the other types of fire would do. And if we want to make the fire bigger, take all these pieces, lean them against it, make the teepee even bigger. Nice thing about this teepee fire now is if I want to cook on it, I've got the fire concentrated going upwards in more or less one place. If I build a big log cabin fire, that heat's going everywhere, and getting my hand that close isn't really going to work. So, showed you how to light a fire. Basic practice makes perfect. So any fire you're doing, if you're doing this in your wood stove, you're doing a campfire, do them this way, and then if you ever need it for an emergency, you'll have built the skills to do it right every time.